Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris BlueRaven, at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout-out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We are 100% listener-supported, so if you like what you're hearing, please click on the donate button. We appreciate your support always, and big shout-out to everybody, especially Hawk and the people that keep the station running. So if you haven't donated already, I'd like to ask you to please do so. Keep this machine going. And you are listening to Studio A. And my special guest this evening is John Stormm. And John is something of a regular on my show. He has much wisdom involving the craft, and I really enjoy having him on. So we're going to try and get him on as much as we possibly can. And John was born in 1953 in a family of hereditary witches that count their ancestry all too many centuries ago in ancient Tara. He was raised and trained in the craft as the only male witch in his family by his grandmother, and he has grandchildren of his own. He began serious martial arts training in 1963. His sensei became his father figure. He strove for perfection, holding a second-degree black belt in Mas Oyamas Karate and a master's ranking in Chinese Kenpo. By the early 1970s, between training for tournaments and running his own small chain of studios, he took radio and TV broadcasting at Paso Community College in Colorado Springs, Colorado. This gave John his first good taste of journalism. 30-plus years later, and dying to write some of these experiences in a book, he wrote an entire series in the Witch Clan theme. These are character-driven stories with true-life characters and experiences melded into an entertaining fantasy. His first full-length novel in this series is Matriarch of the Witch Clan. He and his family sponsor and are also registered as Witches of the World at the Witch's Voice, witchbox.com, and can be found in their archives. And John is currently working on his work-in-progress book called Practical Witchery, which is available for free on Bookrix, and I strongly suggest you check it out. And please welcome John to the show this evening. John, how are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good. It's great to hear your voice, and welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on always.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Nice being here.
Oh, I love having you on, and I know everyone else does as well. So what have you been up to? Let's talk about what you've been doing.
Mostly lately, it's just been mostly doctor's appointments for me and all kinds of tests.
Mm-hmm.
That haven't been writing much. Laptop and everything kind of crapped out, but I intend to replace those soon. It's just right now everything's kind of going on with all the medical tests, the MRIs, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you want to elaborate on with that, or should we send you some energy?
I'm hanging in there. Having come through the MK Ultra program, I've already survived a great many things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody really has a right to expect that they're going to survive. So I'm upbeat about it, actually. I mean, it's something that could go either way. They're finding seizures and stuff like that going on in my brain. Mm-hmm. I've had some stroke damage. There might possibly even be a tumor in there. I don't know, but I'm not really overly worried about it. I wouldn't be here now if Lord and Lady didn't have some particular idea of keeping me here. I wouldn't have survived as many things as I have. And, kind of like the old wine commercial, they'll sell no wine before it's time. Well, I'm not leaving this earth before my time, one way or another, so I'm kind of happy with that. One way, I'm happy to leave. I'm happy to stay. If I stay, I know I'm going to be useful. And, like I say, after I get a lot of this squared away, I intend to, get a laptop or a PC up and running again and get busy with the last few chapters of Practical Witchery. I want to add a chapter on divination and runes and a few other things.
Mm-hmm. It's a fabulous book.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a few more videos to my YouTube channel and to kind of school people through different things and different aspects of the craft. A lot of people, when they think of the craft, the first thing they think of is Crowley, the Golden Dawn, and all that. And there's a lot of stuff in that. There's some nuggets in there to grasp, but there's a lot of stuff in there to mislead.
Mm-hmm.
and I rather just my book on practical witchery is kind of like, well, if you read that, it's not going to make you the master witch all at once. It's going to put you in the place you need to be in order to get there. If that's where you're heading, you want to be a witch, really fine. I'm talking about a serious witch, not a dabbler. Somebody whose whole life is revolved around gathering power and exercising it in a way that they were intended to. Too many people are exercising power over everybody else, and in all the wrong and most wicked ways. And my purpose in life, at least as long as I've got it, is to set as many people free as possible and get them under their own power, to claim their own power back. And I'm hoping the world reaches a tipping point where more people are awake than are asleep, and we're able to do something with this, use this power to live and grow and evolve as we all should.
Exactly, and I so appreciate your work, by the way. I mean, you're what a role model you are for witches and people who are practicing the craft. I must say, you're just amazing to me. And like I said, John, I want you to stick around. I mean, I understand the transition thing. I mean, we're here for a limited time in the illusion of time, but I hope that you're here for a while. And also with that, insofar as the, just going into your health for just a second here, do you think those features have anything to do with the MK Ultra and the psychotronics? Anything to do with that at all?
I do. I'm severely diabetic, but, a couple of years ago, I had vials of insulin that were laced with snake poison, snake venom. I got radiated really badly a couple of years ago too. I'm really looking forward to the EEG that I took just a couple of days ago was very, very significant in what it was showing. I'm not sure what all those little squiggly lines mean, but they sure got everybody perked up. And I had like a sleep study test scheduled for next June, and now it's going to be Monday. It's like everybody's jumping, let's do this now. Right. So they're very concerned. I'm dying to see. I'm hoping I can get them to give me a JPEG or something of what the MRI looks like. Because, excuse me, I think we're going to see some. Besides the stroke damage, I think there's going to be some foreign objects or something in there that's been screwed around with. So I know I've been radiated and. I used to work, my last job that I had, last real job, was in a radiation oncology clinic. And it was actually one of the most safest places in the hospital because they were really, really strict on how they handled their radiation down in there. So I used to take care of a lot of the machines and stuff. And I wore a dosimeter badge all the time. And if the thing gets over so many particles, well, what they do is they pull you out and you do something else for about 6 months to a year. When they get your exposure up to a certain point, they know it's reversible. And the thing about the dosimeter badge is once, they take that every couple of weeks or every month, as the case may be. And when they examine it, each of those machines has a radiation signature, the particular kind of radiation that it gives off, so they know what machine you got exposed from. And it didn't match anything in the hospital. And for like about 3 months in a row, it was like off the damn charts. And so somebody was doing something, and it didn't have anything to do with the machines that I was working around. It was something else. And don't know what it was or where it came from. I had a Geiger counter that I was using because at the time we had like Fukushima and stuff, and I'd take it around to the vegetable stores and check and see, what got it ticking or anything like that. And that thing got fried right in my my little den, my office.
Wow.
Yeah, so something's up with it. That whole thing's very suspicious, but what can I say? I'm still fighting legal battles, too. The government is treating me. You know, they call you an asset when you work for the CIA, and it's not like I volunteered for this. You know, I was inducted into MK Ultra, and so, you know, it's kind of like I didn't have a great deal of choice. It was, you know, either something bad or something worse is the way it always went. So when they call you an asset, basically it means you're their property. And as a result of that, I can't get on a plane anymore. I can't leave the country. I can't even buzz over to Canada to see the other side of the Niagara Falls anymore, you know. I fully believe this is all government done.
Mm-hmm. I do too, because I've been through the psychotronics and the synthetic telepathy. I understand the artificial intelligence, and I can tell you I've never had that, the EEG I think you mentioned, but I'm very leery, I'm sure, and I really am kind of concerned, even if I were to take something like that or get a test like that done, because I know it's going to show up. Something huge is going to show up. And, you know, they're not qualified to assess that technology. You've got techs in there that don't know what they're looking at, especially when we're dealing with a different type of black budget technology that's been integrated into the neural circuitry.
Yeah. Well, this is something causing shorts in my brain, and it'll give me spasms on my left side, but it's also doing something else. But I have, through my mastery over the years and breaking off with MK Ultra and everything, and fighting my program, and all that. If I get slashed on my left arm, I could stop the bleeding, and just by concentrating on it and that. So I believe there's something in there trying to get something started that I'm not letting happen. And that's what they're reading on the EEG, the electroencephalogram. Right.
That makes a lot of sense. And also, I'm wondering, I suspect you might have some scarring from some of the technological assaults.
But yeah, there is. There's a scarring on my brainstem, and that they did when I was an infant to increase my IQ and give me a photographic memory. I kind of resist the term super soldier because I knew guys. I had trained guys. I had trained Duncan, in fact, that when he was a boy in martial arts. And the difference between a soldier and a lot of the ultras is that we're kind of given a general goal, and we determine how we're going to make it happen. And the ones that came in as soldiers that I trained, they get so far, and if you threw something odd at them, they'd be waiting for more orders. They'd be, well, okay, what do you want me to do from there? And it's kind of like, well, Jesus, I'm ultra, you fail. Super soldier is just, right face, left face. As long as somebody's commanding them, they're okay. The ultras were tended to go out and do things, and, things go sideways. We go around them.
Right, you're more rogue, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I would probably be a super assassin or a ninja or something like that. Well, that's what I basically trained Duncan in, but he served in other ways too. Well, we all do get a little cross training, but I'd say that was my number one function.
Right. Well, you have. Well, go ahead.
Hunter seeker type thing, using remote viewing. They give me files and stuff to obsess on a particularly bad egg, and I'd remote view, and basically I'd know where he was, know what he was doing, and I could zero in on him no matter where he was. Basically I don't get no relief until he's dead.
Right. Do you remotely take them down?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's more you do the remote influencing to take them out. So you don't have to physically be in their proximity. Is that correct?
Well, I don't have to be in their proximity, but I start going there.
Right. Okay.
They get me as close as they can, and I go the rest of the way, and I take him right out. Now, about a third of my types of missions were what we'd call, Bush Senior used to call it the duck out of a happy accident. You go in. I remember one fellow was a drug lord. Warlords, drug lords, anything with lord in it, we get it. He was a drug lord, and I remember catching him late one night he was on the mezzanine of a very posh hotel in Central America. And he's walking up. I come out of a closet, walking like I'm lighting a cigarette. He's lighting a cigar. Give him a light. Turn his head around the other way and toss him down the stairs. Mm. And he just, he had a drink in one hand. He just looked like he was drunk, and he fell down the stairs. They don't, no alarm goes up. They don't go investigating no murder. He died of natural causes. Mm-hmm. Broken neck, or a fractured skull or something like that. And, he slipped in the bathtub, fell off a ladder. Maybe he was in a car wreck, something like that. And they don't go, but they give the government what they call plausible deniability. They don't go looking for no hitman or anything else like that. So they were about a third of my missions were like something along that line, other than just going in guns blazing.
Right, and that's hardcore, and I can only imagine what that does. I suspect that, due to the programming, you would have a detachment insofar as not having any remorse towards a situation like that, right?
Well, I was first generation. They in order to get the talents they wanted, they had to kind of minimize what they did playing around with my brain, with the exception of the brain scar or the stem scarring and stuff like that. So essentially, I had to understand that this was a very bad person. They had committed so many murders, and be able to observe them remotely for a while and see what they're doing for myself. And know that essentially, now, I was always treated as a thing. I was in that since I was a baby. I'm an asset, I'm a thing. Actually, I'm a damned thing. And in order to earn my value, to keep from becoming a throwaway ultra, that's one they used for experiments that you weren't going to come out of with all your marbles or anything. There are fates worse than death. You can end up in an institution the rest of your life. It's just horrible things that happen. So you have to make yourself worth something. And in my case, being worth something meant, okay, this guy killed like 15 people for funsies. I remember this one guy in the mountains in Mexico. His name was Joe Baca. He was a Santera, a brujo. And his victims, he'd cut off their hands and soak them in wax and make like a hand of glory and fix their skulls up for cups and different things. And he had a collection. So taking him out really didn't bother me. Mm-hmm. But there were jobs. One of my first jobs when I went active was in Cambodia. And this was during the Vietnam War. Richard Nixon was saying we didn't have any American soldiers or anything in Cambodia or Laos. And people would ask me what I did when I was in the service, and I'd say I wasn't in Cambodia. They said, well, where were you? Well, I wasn't in Cambodia. But during those times, they had the DMZ in Vietnam, and they'd stop the Ho Chi Minh Trail down there, and that's where they would bring the Viet Cong would bring their supplies down into South Vietnam. And since they had the DMZ there and they couldn't go no further, well, what they'd do is they'd swing around into Cambodia and Laos, just cross the border and come down and then swing their stuff into South Vietnam. So what they did at the time was they had people like me, and they had us under as military advisors, give us outrageous ranks and stuff like that. But I'd be like, as a ninja, I'd be waiting on the Cambodia side. When the Viet Cong would come through, I'd be grabbing them. As soon as somebody got just a little bit away from the group, grab him, break his neck, turn his head around. Now, for one, it's kind of grisly and it would psych them out. But for two, you can survive getting your neck broken and talk. Mm-hmm. So if you turn their head around, it constricts their arteries, and it also twists their windpipe shut so that there's no way they survive it. But they die pretty quick and pretty quietly. It's fast and virtually painless because the spinal, the nerves in the spinal cord get completely severed. So when they find their comrades there, it's like the shadows in the jungle just kind of reached out and grabbed them, and they find them with their head turned around the wrong way, and really gave them the willies about. They had a hard time getting people to take supplies across those borders to come down into South Vietnam, and I was pretty good with that. I didn't have a problem with it. Then there was also teaching the Cambodian freedom fighters. Well, we couldn't outright support them, but they had the Khmer Rouge to deal with, and they were some real murdering suckers. And so I would teach the Cambodian freedom fighters how to take out a couple of Khmer Rouge. You get them separate, take their weapons, and that's how you join the freedom fighters. You bring weapons from the enemy and supplies, and you attack them that way. So I was happy enough doing what I was doing. It was grisly work, but I believed it was for a good cause. So I didn't have to go into some jungle village and kill men, women, and children. I killed only soldiers. With ultras, there were no collateral damages. We got who we were there to get. And that was it. So I really didn't feel overly bad about what I was doing. I felt more bad about what I was than what I was doing. And about that time, I got acquainted with a lot of people in a town called Battambang in Cambodia. And the U.S. started sending planes over the border. I have no idea why to this day, but they carpet bombed them. And not just once, but twice or more. And I start freaking out. I become a problem. And, I'm not going to fight. I'm going to leave. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And they were having problems controlling me that way. I wasn't really so much an automaton. I was controlled, but not like you think, like a zombie or anything like that. My brains were working very, very well. A very sharp strategist, being able to control a situation, control people. I affected my own spells for what I did. Get people to look the other way when I'm going this way, or, all of that. I taught Duncan along those lines too. But after that, they says, you got to earn your keep. So, and they'd send me around sometimes, fighting tournaments around the world type thing. I was very into my martial arts. I got some training from some of the best masters in the world. And for a while there, when I kind of put the brakes on and I didn't like the collateral damage about them, like bombing Battambang, I had nothing to do with that. But I didn't like that we were doing it, and I wasn't going to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And so they took me around like that. I got some really superior ninja training. And he says, okay, you got to earn your keep. And you're going to have to teach these other ultras and stuff who we tell you to. And that's when I start teaching Duncan and others and that the serious craft of, this is the kind of martial arts you don't learn in a YMCA. Mm-hmm. We throw out all the pity-pat moves, the stuff that just stuns somebody, and it's down to the serious. It kills quick. It breaks bones every time you hit. Whatever you hit is broken. And in fact, we used to give away this little pin if you completed the course. It was a little silver skull with a crack in it. And then later on, they had me going down to like Central and South America, doing the, getting the drug lords, working with the DEA and, a couple other alphabet agencies, and pick out drug lords and stuff like that. They do that. I'd either go down with a unit or I'd go down with just a couple people to support me, and either it would be a happy accident or it'd be a hit. Made to look like a rival gang. Took them out. Now back then we thought I was doing a good thing, and I was taking out a real murdering devil, but the CIA, we call them the cleaning ladies, or the janitors, would come in after we were done, and they'd clean the place, bribe people, say, well, this is from this gang, and this is from this other gang, and, we'd be on our way out, just be gone, and that And we thought that they'd like destroy the drugs, burning the drugs, but actually they were packing them up and sending them on CIA planes past customs and selling them on the streets of the United States. I didn't find that out for another 15 years, but
wow.
It was a dirty deal all the way around.
Mm-hmm. Certainly was. And how many ultras did you teach or train, would you say?
Pardon?
How many ultras do you think you've trained throughout the years?
Probably as many as 200.
Okay, that's quite a few.
Yeah, some of them, I wouldn't give them great marks for survivability. Like I say, I do remember some that I would call super soldiers. And when I test them and do things, it's kind of like, now, I used to always tell my students, rule number 1, expect the unexpected. Mm-hmm. Rule number 2, this is for the advanced students, be the unexpected. Don't do what they expect you to do. Do something that they wouldn't even dream of. And you always get past their guards. There's so many ways to what we do and how we do it to make it just next to impossible to anticipate what we're going to do, how we're going to hit them, and each move is going to be lethal. So a lot of times I'd have them sparring against people that had higher belt ranks or even myself. And, it wouldn't hurt them bad or anything. These are ultras. Most of them are kind of really hard to hurt really bad. Mm-hmm. The hardened skeleton and what they do to our muscle groups and that with the electroshocks. Mm-hmm. Kind of makes it denser and harder. And I had a punch that was measured at over 1,600 pounds per square inch. Mm. And I could hit on an average. This wasn't my fastest. This was my average. About 4 times a second in 4 different directions in 1 second. Each at 1,600 pounds per square inch. So if it was a concrete block, it would be busted. Mm-hmm. And nobody's head is as hard as a concrete block. So, if I had 4 people close enough to touch within 1 second, the time it takes you to say, I used to do this thing in these, I used to do martial arts demos or exhibitions and that. I'd break, they'd hold up like 4 bricks or 4 planks or something like that around me, and we'd have the audience yell out 1001, and before they finished 1001, I've already broke off 4.
Oh, well.
So, people would say, well, that's pretty good if you get attacked by a gang of bullets or bricks in a dark alley at night, and they don't understand that was 4 people standing around me. They'd all be dead that quick. Mm-hmm. With fractured skulls. And, 1 minute is more than I need to take out about 15 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite lethal.
Yeah. They didn't call us ultras for nothing. Mm-hmm. I can tell you stories about training Duncan when he was a kid.
That's interesting. What about the, when you were being hit with this, you guys were getting electroshock therapy? Because this was the old school MK Ultra, right? Yes,
I'm a first generation MK Ultra. When I was born in 1953, by August, I was one of the first, not the first, one of the first children inducted into it. For the first 18 months of my life, I was under their complete control, and it was nothing but sheer pain and just about every childhood disease you could imagine. Mm-hmm. It was it was a very painful and dark place, and then there'd be the doctor's visits and stuff afterwards. So they kind of had me from the very, very beginning. Duncan, they took him very young. He was about 11 when I first started training him. He's had other teachers. We all have a lot of different teachers. But I was probably one of his major ones for what they call like an assassin school.
Mm-hmm. And what happens to the parents? Where are the parents when this is going on?
Parents are controlled too. Generally, if they're fooling around with you, they've been fooling around and controlling your a generation or so before you. Mm-hmm. I had a stepfather that they just controlled all over the place. For a while there in the early 50s, they thought, well, I was this beautiful blonde hair, big blue-eyed, bouncing baby boy, and they thought, well, I might be a candidate for MK Monarch, and that was just started up in the early 50s in California, Southern California. In fact, Walt Disney was a part of that. And a lot of people down there, they were grooming icons, you know, that people practically worshipped. And a lot of people came through. There's a whole list of stars today that came through MK Monarch. But they took me down there in the 50s. Though basically what they did with my stepdad is they offered him a job at Roar Aircraft in Riverside, California. So we moved from Rochester, New York, where I was an MK Ultra at Building 400 at Strong Hospital, moved us to Riverside, California, and then I was going to some doctors right over there where they were still in the process of building Disneyland. And most of that is underground over there. And they tried me out for a few things with Monarch. Some stuff didn't really go the way they would have liked to plan, and I kind of got rejected from Monarch and sent back for Ultra. Probably for the best, I think. And, you know, it's kind of hard to imagine, but when it got into the sexual abuse, I got violent. And what they did for shock therapy wasn't on my head. What they did is they strapped different pads to different muscle groups, and they have a thing. It looked like a big briefcase, and it would set the amount of voltage, the amount of amps, and the duration, and it'd be in pulses. You know, so. You know, picture a full body flex every 3 seconds, you know, and you just kind of hold it for 5 seconds. And every muscle in your body is like as hard as mahogany for, you know, while that voltage is running through. And they do that for hours on end. And your muscles would get very, very dense and very, very hard. Not extraordinarily big, you know, big to whatever you had, but they, you know, if somebody hit you or ran into you, it'd be like hitting a telephone pole.
It's terrible. You know, when I look at all that technology, and now, of course, they have it deployed through satellites where it's a psychotronic remote influence, remote attack. I'm sure you're familiar with that, and that's what they hit me with in 2004, by the way. So I do understand that. It's a similar thing, except you don't have to be in the room physically to get these attacks and assaults. And it's just hellacious, John. It's just incredible.
Hell is a very good way. That's another reason why if this thing turns out to be some kind of tumor or it's going to go somewhere. I'm not worried about passing on. I've been so close, been back and forth over that, you know, get blown up, shot up, and everything else like that, that I've seen enough to know that we have absolutely nothing to fear about moving on that way. People are afraid of the unknown. Well, I got to tell you, the first so many 100 yards of where we're going, I've already seen, and I don't see any reason to be afraid of it. I see more reason to cherish it, because everything that I've had to endure here because of NK Ultra, it's like I've done my time in hell, and I'll be glad to move on out of it. And, you know, but until then, I got siblings, which is all of you, that as best I can, I'm going to give you what you need to help set yourself free. I can't do it for you, but I can give you the information. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. It truly is. And I love the work you're doing, and I so appreciate you being there for everybody. Because, you know, I don't think people grasp the how heavy these programs are and how damaging they are on so many different levels for everybody. And I'm so sorry you went through that, John. But I know it's made you a very powerful being. But, yeah, it's just, you know, when I look back and I see this stuff, I'm thinking to myself, why is this being allowed? I mean, what is wrong with this planet and these people that are deploying this abuse and thinking it's okay to harm the beautiful mind of wonderful beings? I just don't get it.
Well, we're all, you know, how many witches, I imagine there's a lot of witches that listen to this, just from the name of the program. You know, people that are interested in that, but you'll hear a great many covens invoke Lord and Lady. And depending on the coven, the names and who the Lord and Lady is that they're talking about could be very different. And like any witch, I have a Lord and Lady too. Well, I'm what they call a Danaan witch. I was raised as a Danaan witch, not as a Christian or anything else. And Danu, well, the Blue Danube River, the Danube Valley, that since Paleolithic times, that's where our people came from. We worship Danu. Danu was Mother Earth, Mother Nature. Okay, so we are children of two parents. Everybody likes to say our Father who art in heaven, and they completely forget they got a mother, and it's that would be Mother Mary. No, it's not. It's Mother Danu. It's Mother Earth. We have elements of both parents to us. My physical body. When I'm done with it, my consciousness no longer animates it. It turns into dirt, common, everyday, earthly dirt. This is mine from Mother Danu, and I'm a part of her ecosystem, as it were. All right, and as a responsible son or daughter, we should respect our mother. And, the Bible has a commandment, honor thy father and thy mother, that it may be well with thee and thy days may be long upon the earth. Well, most Christians and Jews don't have the slightest clue who mother is. They just kind of skip over that part. And they're very patriarchal. And I come from a matriarchal, which is not exactly the opposite. Yeah, matriarchal, you could be either or. Male or female could rise to the top, depending on who's oldest and wisest. And the other part of our Father is the Father. Enoch called him the Father of all spirits, and you'll see a lot of things called Enochian magic and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's very well looked up to. And that spirit of yours, that consciousness, that awareness is actual spark, literally a divine spark from the Father of all spirit, given free will. Now, when the Old Testament talks about giving you the knowledge of good and evil, it's not simply a matter of don't do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, because it's wrong. It's like, no, if that's all you know, you still haven't got it. Your knowledge of good and evil has to be not only what's wrong, but what makes it wrong. Why is it wrong? When you steal from somebody, they work so hard to obtain something that either brings them some joy in their life or is maybe very useful to them. And you take it away from them, you leave them in a dark place. You leave them suffering. They got to do something to either go buy another one or, and it may not well be easy. You put a hardship on them. You make hell on earth. You make it hard on people on earth. And that's what's wrong. That's the knowledge of good and evil. And you wouldn't know it unless you expressed or experienced it in a plane such as we are in this material plane, to understand what's right and what's wrong and why is it right or wrong. And that's your empathy. And everybody should have it, but everything in this paradigm has been to take people's empathy away. Because if you don't have that, you think, no, we're sending these drones over to Pakistan and we're killing these suspected terrorists. We just launch a hairfire missile and the guy comes home from work at night and we see him. Man, that's just a suspected. So deep with a joystick. I suspect that guy might be a terrorist. He doesn't talk about nice things about America. It's not that he's convicted or anybody's got evidence. He's suspected. It's like the old witch hunts. She's a witch. She's a witch. And they haven't learned anything. Back in the very, very old days, it's like, okay, you're a witch. You've been accused of being a witch. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to tie you up and we're going to throw you in the river. And if you sink, well, and obviously you were a good Christian soul and you're going to go home, meet your maker, but we're going to take all of your stuff for the furtherance of the church. If you are a witch and you float, then obviously you've got a pact with the devil and they're going to pull you out, burn you, hang you, or both. And of course they're going to take all your stuff and use it for the furtherance of the church.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of get the picture here. Somebody's getting all your stuff. Somebody's taking your life and everything that you got because it suits them, because it benefits them. Not because you're bad or anything. Well, the terrorist deal is the same deal. You know, they come in, oh, he's a suspected terrorist. Bam, we just took out his wife and his family. Well, that's collateral damage. And then when the neighbors come to see if there's any survivors or anything like that in the rubble, well, they do what they call a double tap. They save the other hellfire missile to take out as many of them as possible. And you wonder why these people don't like America and why they'd be a threat, you know, or their relatives would be a threat, you know, or want to hate us or kill us or anything like that if they could. Mm-hmm. But it's the same old being worked. It's a dark paradigm. I call this the golden age of warlocks. They rule everybody, but see, they disconnected. Now everybody's paying taxes, and most of their taxes go for this military stuff all over the world. We're committing all these atrocities everywhere. Even the atrocities they committed on kids like you and me and so many others in the MK Ultra. You know, we talk about people's human rights. Well, I haven't had any human rights.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I don't even have the right to leave the country without their permission unless I'm going to kill somebody they want dead.
Mm.
And I won't do that no more. I haven't done that since the late 70s. You know, I'm my own man, and I will insist on it. And I've had to fight for that,
mm-hmm.
And I'm still fighting for it, even in court. But you know, they control everything, and the empathy. Nobody's concerned about all those dead babies and dead women and children and people suspected of being, you know, the misery we're causing there. It doesn't matter. We'll just keep paying our taxes, and they'll buy more Hellfire missiles and Predator drones. And, you know, President Obama will joke about it. You'll never see it coming. Like this is a good thing. Like this isn't murder. And people, well, let's turn on the basketball game. Hey, it's March Madness. But they're completely unhooked. And that is not the natural state of the human soul. You know, they're told they only have these 5 dogmatic senses. Now, some people only have that. But many of you have more than that. You know, you feel those eyes on the back of your head, and you know somebody's watching. And when you look, yeah, sure they're watching. You get this gut feeling about this, that, or the other thing. You have dreams. You have things that are more than that. Mm-hmm. And this is what they try to disconnect you from. Fluoride in your water helps disconnect you from a lot of that too. Mm-hmm. And this is sorcery. The using the chemicals and potions and stuff like that. In the old days, old craft, that was known as sorcery. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it became a bad thing when people start, warlocks, oath breakers. This was a term coined by Gaelic witches and druids to describe those who attended various mystery schools who made an oath to use what they learned there for the furtherance of their own communities and not just to benefit themselves. So when you had a sorcerer out there making potions, healing people and helping people and taking away their pain, you know, it was always considered that the greatest power given to men, women, of course, and angels is the power to relieve suffering and bring joy. And you know, the craft is intended for that. Get rid of their ignorance. Teach them, you know, when to plant their crops, how to plant their crops well, how to take care of themselves, how to help heal them, and all these things. So sorcery was a good craft, but when they started using it, well, hey, I know she's got to keep coming back for this drug or that drug, and we just keep making money off of it. Or we poison people, you know, for money or for some profit, you know, take their stuff. Well, that's when it starts becoming frowned upon. That's why when you hear about the Pythagoreans meeting in secret, mm-hmm. because they were warlocks, their in a world where business was done and based upon a man's word, your contract was your word and your handshake. These were the people whose word wasn't worth anything. You didn't have Madison Avenue to lie for you and put up a beautiful picture to make people think that your stuff would do what it didn't. You had word of mouth, yours and the words of anybody who came to you, and you prospered or not, depending on how well you did this. And the warlocks were using everything they got to. Warlocks, when I talk about craft, I mean all the crafts: sorcery, necromancy, all of these had certain purpose, and it got twisted to their benefit. And today, big pharma, it's funny that some of the biblical prophecies talking about the last times and the last time Babylon had talked, they're mad upon their sorceries. Well, if you look it up in the original Greek, you'll see the word pharmakia, which is the word we get pharmacist from, or pharmacy. And, most MDs, it's a doctor of medicine. That's a doctor of sorcery. That's higher learning. It's like I said, not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on how it's being used. And we're finding we're being controlled very nastily today by an unrestrained, sorceress big pharma.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. That's so well said, John. Yeah, it's and how do we break this spell of control? I mean, that's literally what people are under on a mass scale, wouldn't you say?
Yes, but like I say, knowledge is power. From there, they're using knowledge in a bad way to have power over you. The best thing you can do is get out of your ignorance. And for a witch or a wizard, there's no one book you're going to read, no one spell you're going to read that's going to give you power. The learning of a single spell will give you more possibilities with what you can do with certain situations and very specific situations depending on the spell. But the increase of your knowledge, your understanding, and your will, your ability to exercise your own will, you have to know your own mind before you do that. Where it says, know thyself, these words are intended to be profound. You want to start finding your own power. You better find out who you are and what you feel about things. When I was teaching martial arts, it is a great power to have at your fingertips. It's like having a gun that you don't have to carry in a holster or find bullets for or anything like that at any given time. But you need to, if you haven't come to grips with what you think about violence, people who do violence, what is worthy of exercising that kind of power for, you have to do that in advance. And you have to do that, it's a personal thing. Am I going to allow myself to be beaten? Do I know that these people will just be satisfied with leaving me with a few bruises? I could be a pacifist and let that go, turn the other cheek. But if they're going to murder you and then go in and murder your family or the next person down the street, well, evil prevails when good men do nothing. Mm-hmm. Good women, as the case may be. So if they come to you to do you damage, maybe the best thing you could do is cripple them, or if they're bad enough, even kill them if necessary. But you have to determine before you get to that point, so that this training goes to like the reptilian part of the mind, and it's instantaneous. The minute somebody flashes a knife at you, you are breaking that arm and maybe collapsing that windpipe or breaking that neck or fracturing that skull or, a nice hard punch to the heart or something. You're taking that person out. As an ultra, we train that way because, you're not usually messing with one-on-one. It's usually more than one-on-one, multiple assailants. So you can't do no pity pat. You have one punch, one move that you can do that you can actually get away with, and it has to be good. Now, after that, somebody could have the draw on you and shoot you, one of the other people or something like that. So you have to consider, you have to move, you have to keep moving, you have to, use fear and things like that, everything around you to control that situation to the point where you survive and they don't. And it's all craft. Mm-hmm. Every last bit of it. You dance, you whirl, you spin, you call out for more opponents. Bring your friends, bring weapons. You make them hesitate. You make them fear. Because once they fear losing, the fight itself is only a formality. They have already lost. You have beat them. Mm-hmm. Usually they go running. You rarely have to face more than one or two for the rest decide they don't want no part of that medicine and they take off. If there's craft to it, it's not just brute strength or anything else like that.
We're heading for a break real quick. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned with John Stormm.